Thank you. How do you write your melodies?
I don't know. I guess, as you said, they come different ways sometimes. Sometimes I think about it, other times it's just hard to riff through it.
It usually is, can I play what I'm trying to keep as the foundation while I'm trying to write it? Like for Your Own Dance, I couldn't. For sometimes life takes all day, that one I could. And for Dreams I'm Living For, I could. But one tune I couldn't, besides Your Own Dance. Have you heard of an author called SARK? She writes a lot of books in crayons. She writes about the creative process a lot, but she writes all of her books in crayons. And she loves that space of consciousness where you're just falling asleep or just waking up. You're not really either or. Because lots of good ideas come through at that time. It's a really great space to be in. And so she just lies around all day in her bed, in pajamas, drifting in and out of sleep, coming up with ideas to write for books. And I just thought, that's interesting, because I've had some really good ideas come through then. Because I noticed, just like the Zen saying, right? If you walk through the mist, you will get wet, right? If you play with words, you will write lyrics and write stories and write poems. If you play with melodies, you will be finding melodies. If you pick up a bass and start messing around, you'll probably find a bass line. If you play with your guitar, you'll find progressions, you know? It doesn't all have to be intellectualized. You don't want to be like an expert up here and like you could write your thesaurus on it, but you know, it's like you know so much you can write an encyclopedia about how to ride a bicycle, but you've never gotten on the bicycle. The whole idea is get on the bicycle. That's the fun part, you know? So she writes everything she wants to about the creative process in that state. And I had this idea, it was a Genesis tune, Throwing It All Away. You know that song? It's got this really cool guitar thing, and it goes like, you know, she's throwing it all away, throwing it all away. It's a great tune. But it had this really neat little guitar sound in it, and I thought, it's a hot day, I'm going to take a shower, but when I get out, I want to program that guitar sound, and I want to write a song with that sound. I was in the shower and wrote the lick in the shower. I heard this thing, and I said, this is what you got to play. And then I found the sound, and I started to record it. I just started demoing it right away, because it was such a sparse part to play that there wasn't really anything for me to strum and get into to start singing with. So I just put on a bunch of tracks, a couple of guitars, and I made a little recording, and I went and laid down in my bed and just listened to the recording over and over and decided, where do I want to sing, where do I want the melody to be, and what should this be about? You know, and just started making stuff up, and, you know, we feel like we're playing, we're just making stuff up. But you were writing. That's what the playfulness and whole creative process is. And that was probably the only tune I've ever written that way. Like, I'm not playing anything, and I'm laying down in that state trying to get the good stuff that way. But every time I hear of a new way that somebody writes, I always try to experience it, because I don't want to repeat myself. I don't want to do it the same way all the time. Yet, you come up with new things when you try it a different way as well, which is fun. Like having to write a tune on a piano one time and just playing the black keys. You know, I had never done that before, but it was fun. I could see where that would be very limiting now, you know, not knowing much piano. Maybe all my songs would sound like they're on the black keys, so I don't do that often. But there's something also about having written my first tune when I was 10 that part of me still feels like I'm 10 years old again every time I write. It's kind of bizarre. It's not like I feel like I'm not any better at it. It's just that I remember how cool it was to be in that environment of writing something and playing with the ideas and like being with the muse. I mean, you're with the whole energy of life. You're with the whole, whatever, you know, makes us up, you know, the whole creative pulse, that life force, all of that stuff is happening right then in that moment, and you're manipulating it. You're using it through you to create something that never existed before. James Taylor has a nice way of saying it. He says, well, I just heard it first. Like it was just floating out there anyway, but it's like a frequency, and you can always tune in to do it on a regular basis. Some people disagree with that. They think they have to wait for that creative burst. Well, for me, I get those creative bursts, like, you're in the shower and you have to go out and write something down, or you're walking through the field and the song comes and you have to go write it down. But even in the bursts of things that you think of something really cool to say, sometimes it's something somebody else said. I write them down, and they're all really decent things. But if the song doesn't come out whole in one of those bursts of lightning, you've got to make time to sit down and sort of make a puzzle out of all those pieces. And that point, those efforts sometimes don't feel like you're being super creative, because you're not feeling that burning, oh my God, I got a great idea thing. It doesn't feel the same. It feels like, I really want to finish this. I don't really know for sure if I feel inspired to do it, but I sure have the desire to do it. That's good enough. That's a new muscle and writing practice that you need to get used to. Because that first idea that comes out, a cool guitar riff, a cool little lyric idea, or some title that you're going to write a whole tune on, those things are wonderful, but like I said, if you don't get the whole song in that one sitting, at some point you're just going to end up with lots of stuff that's unfinished. And most of my students tell me that. I've got lots of great ideas, but they're all unfinished. So what you need to try to work on is finishing. And for me, if I'm not writing, it's because I'm just not sitting down and writing. I love to write. I'm not like Billy Joel, where it's painful and it's like, he always says it's just so hard and just, he wants to die every time he has to do it. It's like, I really get a kick out of it. But I also sometimes use an alter ego to do it. I remember being a kid and thinking James Taylor and Carly Simon are just ace at this, and they never have any trouble. So when I feel like writing, but I'm not sure how to get started, in those days I used to just play a few James Taylor tunes and sing those, and sing a few Carly Simon tunes and play those, and then I'd play some of the tunes I had finished of my own, and then I'd start to write something. I would be like acting. I'd be like getting in that place of, I am a songwriter. Sort of like you have to drive yourself to the place and get in that vibe, get in that conditioning. And so I want you to try to, if it helps, imagine that, you're Quincy Jones, or you're Lee Ritenour, or, Paula Cole, or whoever you have to be, to sit down with the bits that you come up with and see if any of them go together. I have piles of sheet music where it's just a cool progression and something basic and standard tuning that I've written down and notated. I've got little riffs, I've got things on tape, I've got piles of lyrics or titles that I could use, possible titles, titles for particular albums. I've got certain sounding records that, I love this Fleetwood Mac track, or I love this Stevie Wonder track, I want to do horns like this, I want to have a phase on it like this Steely Dan tune, I want to, whatever it is, I make lists of these things so that when I'm sitting there going, what does this song need? What were some of those cool sounds I wanted to play with? Like for Dreams I'm Living For, that one that had the capo on it before, and the E string down to C, where it had the... One of the ideas for the drummer that I was using is I wanted to use the drums with the muffled material over them so that they sound... That's so not bam, 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 big sounding drums like Phil Collins or something. I wanted them to be a muffled sound. I didn't know what tune I wanted to do it on, but I was asking the drummer to make the drums sound like the part for the LP version of Let It Be. There's like 3 different versions of that song. But Ringo always used these tea towels in those days over calfskin heads, so they were very thuddy. It was a really cool sound. And he'd put like these bandana type things that they were literally tea towels, so if they spilled the tea over the drums, and he'd hit them with the sticks, and they'd have this it had a really nice sound. And he just said to me, play me the song. So I played him Let It Be, and I told him this was the kind of drumming I wanted on one of my songs. I didn't know which one. And he was just overcutting the drum tracks. He said, well, which tune's up next? Which one's cued? And I said, well, this one. It happened to be The Dreams I'm Living For. And he even did the beginning of the like the beginning of Let It Be. You can't tell that we stole those drums from Let It Be. The song doesn't sound anything like Let It Be. But those are all those sparks of inspiration, those fun things. So getting back to you want to exercise sitting down and playing with all this stuff. Sometimes I'm just walking, getting back and forth from a class, walking down the street to another building, and I'm singing one of my ideas, and I realized it just went someplace new. Like, where did that go? What? I wrote that thing like 3 years ago. And I go home and find it, and sure enough, the things go together.